I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets. So if you and a man was in a corner doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing...
You will tell it?
No, somebody come to tell me.
Okay.
I gather that, I value that, I'll pay for that. Come, tell me. I know so many things I shouldn't know, and they all know.
See, Katt wasn't bragging. He was warning, because in Hollywood, knowing the truth is a death sentence dressed up as a coincidence.
They told me to jump, I jumped. They told me to wear this, I wore that. I wasn't raised to trust myself.
But what happened when one woman finally stopped jumping? What happened when she decided to tell everything? That's when things got really dark. 3 months after Hayden Panettiere released a memoir packed with industry secrets, she was found dead at 36. And the woman who tried to call out the system on live television, she never appeared on that stage again. This is how Hollywood puts its victims into an eternal sleep. Before we get into what happened to Hayden, before we understand why Dakota Johnson risked everything to speak up, you need to understand the actual rules of this industry. And the only person brave enough to lay them out plainly is Katt Williams. For years, Katt has been doing something most comedians won't do. He's been connecting the dots. He's been pulling back the curtain on how power actually works in Hollywood. And more importantly, he's been warning people about what happens when you know too much.
You can either do the dirt or you can know the dirt. I'm one of the chosen high-ranked know the dirt individuals.
Think about that for a second. There's 2 positions in this industry. You can be a perpetrator, or you can be someone who knows about the perpetrators. But here's the thing about being in that second group. Everybody knows you're in it, and once they know you know, your clock starts ticking. Katt has built his career on this knowledge, but he's also been incredibly clear about the price tag that comes with it. He's watched it happen over and over. Someone rises too high, speaks too loudly, threatens to expose too much, and then suddenly they're gone. Not always dead. Sometimes it's just their career that dies. Sometimes it's their reputation, sometimes it's something quieter than that, but the pattern is always the same. What Katt discovered, what he's been documenting for years in his comedy and his interviews, is that Hollywood doesn't just silence people. It doesn't just sue them or blacklist them. It systematically puts them into what we're going to call an eternal sleep. And that sleep can take many forms. It can be psychological, it can be pharmaceutical, it can be relational, it can be isolation, it can be threat, or, and here's where the real nightmare starts, it can be final. Now, to understand how this eternal sleep actually works, we need to look at a perfect case study. We need to look at Hayden Panettiere, because Hayden wasn't just a victim of Hollywood's system. She was a textbook example of how the system is designed, implemented, and maintained from the moment a child is old enough to be useful. Hayden Panettiere started her career as a kid on a show called Heroes. She was the cheerleader with super strength. America loved her, she was talented, she was beautiful, and she had her whole life ahead of her. But she was also a child walking into an industry that has no genuine interest in protecting children. And this is where the eternal sleep begins. Not when you're an adult making choices, when you're a kid who hasn't learned to say no yet.
Yeah, and the person who handed me those pills, I had already developed a very tight relationship and a great bond with them. So when it happened, I didn't see it as anything inappropriate or negative. I trusted this person, and it was not. I didn't just have a great personal relationship with this person, but this person's job part of their job was to always protect me.
What she's describing is chemical control from childhood. The handlers, the people who were supposed to protect her, they were literally giving her pills before red carpets to keep her energetic, smiling, and obedient on camera. That's not care. That's pharmaceutical control. And it worked exactly the way it was designed to work. Because when you start young enough, when you pair the drugs with a trusted adult, you don't learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust them. You learn that their judgment matters more than your instincts. You learn that saying no creates problems.
They told me to jump, I jumped. They told me to wear this, I wore that. I wasn't raised to trust myself except for my instincts as an actor. That was instilled in me, but as a person, it was a completely different story.
This is the foundation of the eternal sleep. By the time Hayden was a teenager, she didn't have the internal compass to protect herself. She had been chemically and psychologically trained to comply, and that compliance would follow her into the most dangerous moment of her life. Fast forward to 1998. Hayden is 18 years old. She's becoming a household name. She's beautiful, famous, and still carrying all that programming from childhood. She's on a luxury yacht in the south of France. Everything about about this setup is deliberate. Private location, international waters, a young star separated from her usual support system, trapped on a boat she can't escape from. This is the system working exactly as designed. A woman Hayden trusted, someone Hayden would later call Stella in her memoir, led her below deck under the pretense of a surprise. Then Stella locked her in a room with a naked man, a famous British singer in his 30s, and just like that, Hayden was trapped. She had spent 18 years being trained not to trust herself, not to say no, not to run. And in that moment, something shifted, because what happened next was actually an act of resistance. Imagine that. Imagine being trapped on a boat in the middle of the ocean with nowhere to run. No street to disappear down, no neighbor to call for help. Just open water in every direction. And still finding the strength to say no. But here's what's important about that moment. Hayden survived it. She wasn't hurt that night. She made it through. But the trauma of being set up, of being controlled, of being put in that position by someone she trusted, that never left her. For 28 years, she stayed quiet about it. She didn't name names. She didn't tell her story. Why? Because naming those names would have come with a price. So she carried it. She carried it through relationships, through addiction recovery, through custody battles, through the loss of her brother. She carried it silently, just like the system wanted her to. But in 2026, something changed. Hayden decided she wasn't going to carry it anymore. In May 2026, Hayden Panettiere released a memoir called This Is Me, A Reckoning. For the first time in 30 years, she was going to tell her story out loud. Not all the details, not all the names, but the truth. And that decision, that was an act of war against the system that created her. Because the system doesn't just profit from your silence. It depends on your silence. It survives because women stay quiet. It thrives because everyone knows what happened, but nobody talks about it. The moment you break that code, you become a threat. Hayden went on tour. She did interviews. She talked about the grooming. She talked about being set up. She talked about an industry that protects predators instead of children. And the entire machine that had built her up started to see her as a liability instead of an asset. 3 months. That's all it took. On August 16th, 2026, Hayden Panettiere was found unresponsive in a rental loft in South Carolina. She was 36 years old. The official cause was cardiac arrest, possibly an overdose, but the timing was impossible to ignore, and that clock had just run out. Here's what keeps people up at night about Hayden's death. It's not the first time this story has happened. It's not even the second time. There's Marilyn Monroe, found dead behind locked doors. The official story was overdose, but before she died, Marilyn allegedly said she was planning to hold a press conference and reveal what was in her private diary. Names, dates, details about powerful political figures. Then there's Brittany Murphy, died suddenly at 32 in 2009. Just before her death, she had signed a legal statement supporting a whistleblower. She told her family she believed she was being watched. The official cause was natural causes, but independent tests later found heavy metals in her system. Both women spoke up. Both women threatened to expose something. Tea's not about defending yourself. It's about making sure nobody else even thinks about speaking up. When you stack all 5 of these layers on top of a person who was groomed from childhood, not to trust themselves, that's the eternal sleep. That's someone who is functionally paralyzed, even if they look awake. Now, here's where the story takes a turn, because not everyone stays asleep. Enter Dakota Johnson. Dakota didn't grow up like most Hollywood kids. Her father is Don Johnson. Her mother is Melanie Griffith, an Oscar-nominated actress. Her grandmother is Tippi Hedren, a woman who stood up to one of the most powerful predatory directors in old Hollywood and lived to tell the story. 3 generations of Hollywood experience. 3 generations of learning how power actually works. 3 generations of understanding exactly when you can push back and when you need to stay quiet. November 2019, Dakota Johnson is on Ellen DeGeneres' show to promote her movie. Ellen opens with what looks like a harmless joke. She tells Dakota that she wasn't invited to Dakota's 30th birthday party. Classic talk show setup. The guest is supposed to laugh it off. The audience chuckles. Everyone moves on to talking about the movie, but Dakota doesn't play along.
Party, I wasn't invited.
Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited.
Watch how the energy in the room changes. Ellen, who is used to total control of her stage, suddenly doesn't have it anymore.
Well, who doesn't want to be invited to a party?
Well, I didn't even know you liked me.
It's delivered with a smile. It's said in a light tone, but what Dakota just did was question, on national television, whether Ellen's friendship was ever genuine in the first place. She just pointed out that Ellen doesn't actually like her. Not just as a joke, you have leverage, you have knowledge, you have people inside the industry who owe you favors. You have an understanding of exactly how far you can push and who can actually hurt you. Ellen, on the other hand, was dependent on her brand. She was dependent on being loved, on being the nice one, on being in control. The moment Dakota challenged that control publicly, Ellen looked weak. And once you look weak on live television in front of millions of people, you become vulnerable. What happened next was the beginning of the end for Ellen's show.
Ellen's not that nice.
This was after you went on the show?
After I went on the show, and the world blew up about it.
See, Dakota wasn't the only one who had noticed something was wrong. There were other people who had been on that show, people who had been in that room, and once one person said it out loud, others started to follow. But to understand why Dakota's moment mattered so much, you have to understand what Ellen had been doing on that stage for years. Ellen had perfected a technique. Get the guest under bright lights. Make sure there's a live audience watching. Put them in a position where walking away costs more socially than staying. Then push. Keep pushing. Mariah Carey. Ellen handed her a glass of champagne on live television and started asking again and again if she was pregnant. Watching her reaction closely, Mariah was visibly uncomfortable. She took a small sip just to try to end the moment.
I can't believe you did this to me, Ellen.
What?
Months later, Mariah revealed she actually was pregnant at that time and suffered a miscarriage not long after. She said Ellen's segment added real stress during an already difficult time. Ellen had weaponized a pregnancy question and broadcast it to millions of people. Taylor Swift. Ellen flashed photos of male celebrities up on the screen, one after another, and pushed Taylor to react to each one. She was turning Taylor's private dating life into a game for the crowd. This was the pattern. Find a vulnerability, exploit it on live television, use the crowd as ammunition, and most importantly, keep the guest in a position where they can't say no, because that's what the system teaches people. You don't say no. You don't push back. You sit there and you smile and you let it happen until Dakota Johnson walked in and said no. Anyway, in 2020, 4 years after Katt Williams started warning about this, the pattern finally broke. A major news investigation published testimony from dozens of Ellen Show employees. They described a workplace built on fear and tight control. Some said there were strict rules about not making eye contact with Ellen when she walked through the building. Others described a much more serious pattern of misconduct and unfair treatment.
The essence of the special really was totally a lie.
Hedda Muscat says Ellen's special hits all the wrong notes.
I felt Ellen was not taking responsibility at all. She was sugarcoating
The
it.
fallout was fast. 3 senior producers fired within weeks. Warner Brothers opened a formal investigation. Sponsors pulled their support. Ratings dropped. By 2022, after 19 seasons, the Ellen DeGeneres show was completely gone. What started with Dakota Johnson saying, "Actually, no, that's not true," on live television ended with an entire empire collapsing. But here's the part that keeps people talking. Right around the time those court documents connected to the Epstein case started getting unsealed in 2024 and 2025. But the underlying mechanism is the same every single time. Control people from a young age, make them dependent, make them afraid, make them isolated. And when they start to resist, make an example of them. That's how you keep a system running. That's how you keep secrets safe. And that's how an entire industry can operate in the open while doing unspeakable things. Because everyone who could expose it is either asleep or too afraid to wake up. So the real question isn't whether Hayden's death was an accident or something more. The real question is, how many Haydens are there? How many young women have been groomed, drugged, and controlled since childhood? How many have had that programming so deep that they can't trust themselves? How many have been set up in situations that should have resulted in charges, in arrests, in justice, but instead resulted in silence?
I've done nothing but collect information, knowledge, and your secrets. So if you and a man was in a corner doing something you wasn't supposed to be doing...
You will tell it?
No, somebody come to tell me.
Okay.
I gather that, I value that, I'll pay for that. Come, tell me. I know so many things I shouldn't know, and they all know.
And that's not bragging. That's a threat. That's Katt saying, I have seen behind the curtain. I have watched this happen, and I'm still alive because I haven't tried to expose it all at once because I understand how the system works. But Hayden tried. She decided that after 30 years of staying quiet, it was time to tell the truth. And the system responded swiftly. But here's what gives people hope. Even in the middle of all this darkness, the drugs are still being given to child stars. The yacht trips are still being set up. The patterns are still playing out. And most importantly, the silence is still being enforced because that's how the eternal sleep works. It doesn't end with one death. It doesn't end with one person speaking up. It continues because most people choose to stay asleep. Because most people understand the cost of waking up and decide it's not worth paying. That clock is ticking for anyone brave enough to wake up. That clock was ticking for Hayden, and it's ticking for anyone else who decides that staying silent is no longer acceptable. So here's what I want you to understand by the end of this video. This isn't just a story about Hayden. It's not just a story about Ellen. It's not just a story about what happened in Hollywood. This is a story about power, about how power silences, about how systems protect themselves, about how speaking up can cost everything. Hayden made the choice to wake up, and the system made sure she paid for it. Dakota made the choice to push back, and because of her family, because of her preparation, because of her knowledge, she survived. Most people in this industry never get to make that choice. They're asleep before they even understand what what's happening. By the time they realize they're trapped, by the time they understand the cost of speaking, it's too late. That's the eternal sleep. That's how Hollywood does it. That's how a system that's fundamentally built on abuse and exploitation keeps working, decade after decade, generation after generation. Katt Williams has been warning about this for years. He's been laying out the pattern. The question is, knowing all of this, knowing the pattern, knowing what the system does to people who speak up, what would you do? Would you stay asleep? Would you stay quiet? Would you protect yourself by letting someone else take the heat? Or would you, like Hayden, like Dakota, like Katt, decide that telling the truth is worth the risk? Because that's the real story here. That's the real eternal sleep. It's not just about what happens to people who speak up. It's about a world where so few people do speak up that the system can continue operating in plain sight. So, what do you think? Do you think Hayden's death was just bad luck? Do you think the timing was a coincidence? Do you think the system in Hollywood works the way it's supposed to work? Let me know exactly what you think down in the comments below. And if you want to stay woke to how this industry really operates, make sure you're subscribed, because Katt Williams isn't the only one paying attention. More and more people are waking up every single day, and the people at the top are getting nervous. I'll see you in the next one.